the Pac-12 might be kind of circling on UNLV.
You are Locked On College Football with Spencer McLaughlin, your daily podcast on all things college football. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Locked On College Football. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day and your daily source to stay up to date with the biggest stories in this, the greatest sport on planet Earth. The Big 12 has moved games around. Virginia Tech, what's going on in Blacksburg? Something you need to know about. But first, you need to know this episode brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, we're waiting. We're all sitting around going, all right, Pac-12, what are you going to do? Come on, make a move, do something. And I just keep circling back to UNLV. If I were the Pac-12, UNLV would be my number one target. Now, that would depend upon whether you get the exit fees dropped from the Mountain West, because then maybe it's too pricey. If you don't get the $55 million in exit fees or whatever number it is, it's tens of millions of dollars. And I know the Pac-12 has a big war chest, but that only goes so far. If you don't get that drop down at all in mediation, we don't even know when that's going to begin, then guess what? UNLV is probably not your top option. But if you tell me price is the same, UNLV is the school I would look at and say, that's got to be number one option. Now, this got called into question, this notion, when a report came out that UNLV financially is in the hole. I wouldn't get too caught up in sensational headlines about that. It was a curious play from the UNLV athletic director to just kind of say, no, we don't have the money to pay Dan Mullen's contract. Like, huh? Well, no, we do have the money. We're okay. Like, I don't know how closely you're thinking about all of these things. And of course, I'd like to see the Pac-12 succeed. I want all the conferences to currently succeed and stabilize the sport as much as we possibly can amidst all the chaos. And though I would be open to the idea of the Pac-12 and Mountain West merging, that never actually got off the ground in a significant way. It got discussed, it got thrown around, but this is where you're at. So the Pac-12 needs a school. The Mountain West is not in as pressing need of retaining UNLV in that regard. So I feel okay consciously, morally, ethically saying, yeah, I hope the Mountain West loses UNLV, even though that might be one of your flagship schools going forward if you're Glory Navarro's in the Mountain West. But for the Pac-12, that's the most logical addition for a couple of reasons. Number one, geography, right? It's right in the footprint. You don't have to go way out of your way. You don't have to be putting a lot of stress on the Olympic sports or non-revenue sports that, aren't really a part of this and it's all kind of driven by football. That makes a lot of sense. Number two, as I've mentioned before, with regards to whatever the Pac-12's next move ends up being, you want to strengthen your league. You want to bring somebody in who gives you the perception going into 2026, which is the first season that they will actually be a new 8-team conference. You want to have the idea in everyone's mind that, hey, this is an awesome league. We got a couple of Power 4 caliber schools. We've got the best group of 5 schools from the Mountain West, and then we added UNLV on top of all of it, also from the Mountain West. That all is good, fine, dandy, thumbs up. You go, Glenn Coco, 2 for you for the Pac-12. So that's part of the reason that it makes sense. But the other reason is if you do decide, as I've argued before, that you want to add multiple schools, well, there's kind of a logical next addition in there. And that would be Nevada, because it's, wait for it, in the same state as UNLV. Holy smokes. You just can't get that sort of insight anywhere else, folks. I'm glad you continue returning to this channel for those sorts of takes and whatnot. But if you were to bring in those two, you strengthen your league while also bringing in someone that just makes geographic sense. And then you also have someone in there that you don't expect to be a conference contender all the time. Well, not everybody can be. I'm a fan of the Pac-12 adding a school that makes the league stronger. But then if you are going to add 2 schools, maybe you don't want it to be so much of a gauntlet because then multiple losses compared to American conference schools, you might not get the sort of playoff access that you are so seeking. So there have been more just kind of reports, speculation. I just see UNLV popping up a lot. I think if the Pac-12 goes and gets those mediation or gets the mediation to get those exit fees cut down, I think they go after UNLV hard. And then the Rebels have to ask themselves a very important question. Which league do we want to be a part of? Now, in my view, that's an easy answer. You go to the Pac-12. Sign a grant of rights to go through 2030, 31 in that sort of range. And then from there, boom, you figure it out at that time. But all you can do is make the next best move. Even if you are UNLV, which, I've seen mostly speculative pieces in the past if they want to get into a power conference one day. That's why they're playing UCLA in a non-conference, or they're just playing a non-conference football game that, bolsters their resume because it's a Power 4 opponent. That's going to be a big one for Dan Mullen and the Rebels this year. But for UNLV, if your long-term play were to get elsewhere, Pac-12 is the best avenue to do it. That's where you're going to get the most viewership. That's where you're going to be playing in the most competitive league you can. That's the chance. That's the opportunity. That's where the biggest brands are. So I'd certainly go there. Now, let's say, hypothetically, that doesn't work out because the Pac-12 went swinging for American conference schools way back when, and they whiffed. They didn't get Memphis. They didn't get Tulane. They wanted them. Everyone said, yep, we had these conversations, decided, nope, we're good right here. If you have to go, let's say the exit fees only come down to $40 million, or they stay put at, in the $50 million range, yeah, you probably look and go, well, perhaps we just save a few bucks now, spend a few later, but overall it's saving, and we go for Texas State. That'd be the school. That's the easiest addition. I think there is a reason that addition hasn't happened yet. Because the Pac-12's trying to figure out their media rights contract, and they're reportedly, close to getting that deal done. There are a couple different partners involved, streaming component, all that sort of stuff expected to be a part of the new Pac-12 media rights contract. But I suspect that Texas State is there whenever they want. If Texas State is interested, maybe they're not. Maybe they're not. I've discussed before in the past that they could have expressed serious interest in the Pac-12, and they're kind of like, we're not going to, get to the point where you're making us an offer because we're just kind of like, we're happy here in the Sun Belt. And the Sun Belt's a perfectly good league. I can see that. I think if I were Texas State, I'd want to get in the Pac-12 if I feel like I can get to that level and be competitive. Because if you can't, then it's the FSU Clemson to the Big Ten SEC debate. It's, do we want to go there and struggle to finish fifth? And often finish 7th, 8th, and 9th? Or do we want to be in a league where we feel like we can actually win football games? That's an interesting calculation that everybody has to make right now, the Bobcats and their administration included. So, on the whole, I think UNLV is the no-brainer top target. Clearly no one, if they're already negotiating the media rights contract, is changing the calculus for those media executives to where they say, well, if you get this school, then yeah, we'll give you way more. No one's moving the needle at this point. So you're going for what's best for you, the league. I think their eyes are dead set on trying to pluck UNLV out of the Mountain West. But if that doesn't happen, I think Texas State's fallback option. And I don't think it's a bad one. I just think that they haven't gone in that direction right now for a reason, because they do want to wait and see, hey, can we get UNLV? That I think is the golden goose for now until we get the next evolution of whatever happens here. But San Diego State athletic director said end of March. Well, all right. It's March 17th. Getting close. Just saying. I'd continue to follow these things, as I will be doing here on the show. Let me know your thoughts in the YouTube comments. Hit me up on Twitter. All that good stuff. Where does Virginia Tech go from here? Where do they even go? You got to hear what I'm about to say here. First, this episode brought to you by Factor Meals. Eating healthy doesn't have to be complicated. With Factor, you get chef-made, dietitian-approved meals that are ready to heat and eat in just 2 minutes so you can fuel your body without the hassle of cooking. Factor meals arrive fresh, never frozen, with 40 options across 8 dietary preferences each week. You can customize your menu to fit your goals, whether that's Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or Keto. Convenience meets nutrition. That's what Factor is all about. Those two things go together, like peanut butter and jelly. And guess what? That's why you should be checking them out. If you are not already, eat smart with Factor. Get started at factormeals.com/factorpodcast. Use code factorpodcast to get 50% off your first box plus free shipping. That's code factorpodcast at factormeals.com/factorpodcast to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box. Convenience meets nutrition. That's what they're about. Go check out Factor Meals today. And once you do, you check out my friends over at Supply House as well. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need, delivered fast from coast to coast, kind of like the Big Ten or the ACC. They're coast to coast. So too is Supply House. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. That is a big thing for me, and it will be for you as well. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM. Start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Realize on the other side of that break, I said the word here twice, but it's 2 different heres and not the national treasure type, here at the wall, spelled with 2 E's and such. So Virginia Tech was one of the most disappointing teams in all of college football in 2024. They really were. For me personally, and I think in Blacksburg amongst their fans, you'd get that same sentiment. I hope you'd be able to recognize that. The potential for Virginia Tech was right there. Schedule was manageable enough. You had the number 1 ranked returning production roster from a team that had a winning record the prior season, and the Hokies went out and in Brent Pry's 3rd year finished 6-7. Come on. There used to be a segment back when ESPN cared about baseball on Baseball Tonight, pretty sure it was Baseball Tonight, called Come On Man. Maybe it was an NBA thing. I don't even recall at this point. It's all blending together. But you know what I'm talking about. There are a select few teams that I could apply this to for this past college football season. Virginia Tech's one of them. Ole Miss is another one. Come on, man. I mean, you got to be able to, at some point, get back to what they once were. Did you know that Virginia Tech once had a 17-year stretch in which they finished ranked inside the AP Top 25 in 15 of those years? Some of you might not, for the younger audience out there. But I see my demographic numbers. Plenty of you are older and remember that time. Well, here we are, and Virginia Tech is still trying to get back to it. Do you know how many games I predicted them to win? I had some spot on record predictions last year here on the show. Virginia Tech wasn't one of them. I was off by 4 games. I had them going 10-2. I thought they were ready to leap forward. Kyron Drones starting a quarterback again. It all went wrong. Many things went wrong, including but not limited to Kyron Drones' inability to stay healthy. But they were 88th in total offense. Yeah, they should have been a lot better than that. They just weren't. So, you may or may not know, hence why you listen to the show, because I gather these sorts of data points. They've got a new offensive coordinator in there. And at his last stop, it didn't go very well. Philip Montgomery is his name, who was a hot name in the coaching circuit. He had Tulsa once upon a time in the American Conference Championship game. That's not something that you say very often in the world of college football. But alas, he did it. And so Montgomery gets inserted after a brief stint in the UFL. Before that, where was he? The Auburn Tigers. Yeah, that didn't go exceptionally great. Was it him? Was it Hugh Freeze? Was it just not the right situation? Well, we might find out this year. Now, Virginia Tech doesn't have the same sort of experience-laden roster that they had from a season ago. But there are times where having a relatively low returning production metric, according to Bill Connolly at ESPN, is actually an advantage for some teams. Going into last year, who had a high returning production metric? Oklahoma State. Who I thought had been overrated all season long in 2023? Oklahoma State. So when they were bringing back so much of their roster, I thought, that's not a good thing. I would have rather they tore it down to the roots and built up something new. Oklahoma State struggled, by the way. I didn't see 3-9 coming. That's not a Mike Gundy sort of thing. But hey, he and Kyle Whittingham were both under 500. So, I mean, what can happen in college football, really? Virginia Tech brings back just 54% of their returning production from a year ago. That's 77th nationally. You compare that to 2024 going into the year, one of the reasons people like me thought, hey, this team should be good, is they had a winning record the year before. Their quarterback's there. You know who that's going to be. He's got a lot of potential. And you're first in the country bringing back 86% of your returning production? Why didn't it go well? Yeah, the Kyron Drones injury was a part of it, but the issues predated when that started to rise up. So the offense has to be better. You don't bring in a new offensive coordinator if you don't think that the offense wasn't where it should have been the year before. And Kyron Drones last year, 61% completion guy. Can it just be 65? That's all I'm looking for. Not asking for the high-end Heisman level. Dylan Gabriel last season at Oregon, 73%, somewhere in that range. I'm not looking for that. But for Virginia Tech to take a step forward, they've got to be more productive. Kyron Drones has to be more consistent, and he just has to be better. He just has to be able to operate an offense where he's in the mid-60s-ish from a completion percentage standpoint. So Virginia Tech's win total going into next year, according to our friends at FanDuel, is 6.5 games. I believe it was 8.5 last year, and I liked the over. And now they have regressed by 2 wins in FanDuel's eyes. That's not great. Interesting portal note. They are a -3 net in the transfer portal for Brent Pry and company. They have 19 players coming in, 22 going out. Now, here's the interesting thing. I have long been a fan of coaches and staffs, teams, programs, however you look at it, that go out and attack their weaknesses in a really aggressive way. Virginia Tech must like what they have in-house. Because if I tell you the offense was a struggle, 88th in total offense last year with a guy whose skill set resembles that of Lenoris Sellers at South Carolina, if I tell you that, you'd think, well, they probably went and overhauled their entire roster on offense, right? No, not really. Not in this portal class. 19 incoming transfers, 22 going out, hence the -3. But just 8 of the 19 incoming newcomers, that was too many syllables. Let me try that again. 8 of the 19 incoming transfers for Virginia Tech are on the offensive side of the ball. How many of those guys do you think play running back? Keep in mind, Bay Schultuten, their 1,000-yard rusher of this past season and from 2022 as well, he's not there anymore. He's graduated, going to try his luck at the old NFL thing. Where exactly would you put the over/under on how many running backs Virginia Tech brought in via the portal this cycle? They lost their top guy. This is a run-heavy offense, or at least it should be when it's operating correctly. How many? I bet you took the under. Or you put a number. They took 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 running backs via the portal. I've never seen it before. I have not in my life, in my entire time covering college football, which is several years at this point, or even following college football, have I seen a team go, you know what? We're losing this guy at running back and he's important. Let's bring in 4 guys. 4 guys. Oh, boy. I'm going to say one of them will wind up being Virginia Tech's most important transfer. I'm not going to say who that is. I don't know who it is. I don't even know if Virginia Tech knows who that's going to be. Someone's going to emerge as the lead back. Maybe it'll be a full-on running back by committee. We'll just have to wait and see. Might be fun. But for those in Blacksburg, that's what I'm looking for. You lose a bell cow. Are you about to just completely change your running back philosophy? Are you going to be able to get the same level of production? I don't know. But their win total is 6.5. Couple of interesting games. They open with, wait, who? Oh, that's right, South Carolina. You could see a lot of running from quarterbacks in that game. I imagine South Carolina is going to be a sizable favorite. It's played in Atlanta, neutral site, because why in the world play a game on campus and set up a home and home where each team gets a home game when you could, I don't know, play in a neutral site? I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't. But that's something that we do in college football. So August 31st, Virginia Tech, South Carolina, fascinating game. Because if Virginia Tech has found a new formula to win at a high level and take that next step that the fans have been waiting for a very long time, you'll know, because South Carolina is going to be good. But those two quarterbacks, you're going to think the same guys on the field sometimes when you watch them go, assuming they're both healthy going into that game, which I believe they should be, or hopefully they should be. I don't want to jinx anything here. But Kyron Jones, Lenore Sellers, those guys can move. But Virginia Tech gets a second go-around with Vanderbilt, two teams out of the SEC, because why not, I guess. They do not play Clemson in their ACC slate. They do, however, play at Georgia Tech. They have to go at Florida State, who will be much improved. They have to play Miami, and they have to go at Virginia this year. And they have to play Louisville. So maybe they haven't actually regressed by 2 wins from a team standpoint in the eyes of FanDuel, and they just have a tougher schedule. Maybe. Just throwing it out there. But Virginia Tech is someone who can absolutely build themselves up to be an ACC contender. I don't know that that's going to happen this year. I hope, for the sake of those in Blacksburg, Virginia, and the surrounding areas who don that Virginia Tech color, that they are able to. I don't know exactly how to describe. It's purple, maroon, I guess, maroon and orange. Yeah, anyway. So Virginia Tech, not in the Big 12. They have some Big 12, vibes to them, of course. But the Big 12 is doing something that not everyone's a fan of, but I get it. First, this episode brought to you by FanDuel. March Madness is here, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to get in on the action like never before. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's $200 extra bucks to use on everything from buzzer beaters to Cinderella stories and even who's cutting down the nets. Plus, if you want to bet college football, which you might because you're listening to or watching this show, you can do that right now. You've got win totals for every Power 4 team plus Notre Dame. You've got conference championship odds, national championship odds. It's all over there at FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com. Get in on the college hoops or the college football action, whichever one you're feeling, whenever you want. Again, Heisman odds are over there. Individual games can be wagered upon. That's all over at FanDuel.com. All right, so you may have seen this, or you may have not, a little while back. The Big 12 announced that they are moving 10 games this fall to Friday night, various matchups across the conference. And what I've seen as a reaction to this is, why are you afraid to go against the ACC? Utah at Kansas will be the day after Thanksgiving. Houston, Kansas State, or Colorado at Houston rather, Kansas State at Arizona. Just a variety of schools, variety of matchups playing on a Friday night. I get it. I understand why you might have an instinct to say, no, they shouldn't do that. College football is played on Saturday. If you're the Big 12, what is your goal by laying out a television schedule? What are you setting out to do? You're trying to get the most people to watch. So college football Saturday is already chock full of content, including the Big 12, by the way. I am not advocating for the Big 12 to become the MAC, where they're identifiable because of the day of the week they play on. We all love a little Tuesday night MACtion. The last time I tuned in to a Tuesday night MAC game in the college football season for 2024, which I did several times, by the way, because I'm a junkie for this stuff, there was a fake punt on 4th and 9, and it worked. Okay? There's nothing else in the world like a little Maction. So when I hear that the Big 12's putting more games on Friday so that they can, stand alone, I get where they're coming from. Now, one of the counter arguments that I think is valid that Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 has made is, hey, high school football is big in the state of Texas where some of these games are outright going to be played, or that's where people's mindsets are. Okay, I understand that. Allow me to throw a counter, and maybe Drake and I will discuss this later this week. People that are consuming high school football are going to the high school football game. So that doesn't occupy their entire night. High school football is not as big or as long of a production as college football is. So taking games and putting them on Friday and saying, as a drawback, well, you're going to have to compete with high school football. Okay, sure. But it's not taking up their entire night, right? It's much easier to just go to the game, clock in, watch it, go out. You don't have, media timeouts in the same way, or certainly they can't be as long as they are in college football. Like, nothing about high school football is quite as long. And to say that you can't, put something on TV because, well, a bunch of people are going to the games, as if people can't watch on their phones while they're at the games. And then what would you rather compete against? If you are the Big 12 setting out to maximize television viewership as much as you can, who do you think you have a better chance of succeeding against to draw more people into your games? The SEC and the Big 10 or high school football? By the way, not all of these games are being played in the state of Texas. And yes, some people's attention may be over there at times, but which one has a higher probability of the Big 12's football games getting lost in the shuffle? Now, you can also make the argument that you shouldn't care about television ratings and you should just play the games so that people can go and all night. Well, kind of seems like they're going to be able to go on a Friday night if they really want to. Because if you're an alum of Kansas State, for instance, or let's say the Kansas State-Arizona game as a perfect example, that game being played in Tucson at Wildcat Stadium, who are you losing? How many people really would you be losing to the high school football scene in Arizona because, well, it's Friday and we don't want to do this? Some people might just want to be enjoying football, whatever it is. And if you bring them a higher level of it, they might be more inclined to move in that direction. So I don't think it is completely crazy, because when you have as many games in these super conferences, putting them all on Saturday, I think makes it easier for them to get lost in the shuffle. Having the ability for them to stand out, I think it makes some absolute sense if you're Brett Yormark in the Big 12, when your goal, obviously, is to maximize viewership. Appreciate everyone listening. I will see you next time. And until then, hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.